Yo, welcome back to another video, y'all. We back in here. Welcome. We got this video right here. Y'all already know what time it is. This is, why the Cell Saga is the most overrated.
Flexible and creative was really essential to what I wanted to make, and I didn't find a platform that did that other than Wit.
So if you guys remember, I made a promise to give a review about the entire Dragon Ball Z saga. The first video was about the Frieza saga, and thankfully you guys received it pretty well, showed a lot of love. I plan to do 2 more videos, one about the Cell saga and another about the Buu saga, and hey, if those are received pretty well, I might drop more DBZ videos, maybe something about Super. But for that to happen, y'all gotta show love, so make sure you drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. For the longest amount of time, I've been saying that the Cell saga kinda gets overrated in the grand scheme of things in Dragon Ball Z. I think it's a pretty good arc and has great moments, especially the ending, and even the beginning stages I enjoyed as well, but there's a lot of stuff in between that I think gets lost in the shuffle due to some lazy writing by Toriyama. But before we get into what's in the middle that I didn't like, let's talk about the good, because there's definitely a lot of good and more good than bad in this series, obviously, because I do like it a lot. The growth in a lot of these characters is amazing. For starters, let's look at somebody like Piccolo. This was the ending of Piccolo's story in my personal opinion. Of course, he did other things later on in the show, but as far as his actual story and character development, this is really where it ended for him. In the beginning of the arc, Piccolo was where he was in the ending of the Frieza saga, one of the strongest fighters in the world, but a tier below Goku and Vegeta due to them breaking past their limitations and becoming Super Saiyans. But once Piccolo realized that the androids were obviously too much for them to handle and stronger ones were on the way, Piccolo completed his arc, in my personal opinion, when he finally merged with Kami. Now, I do believe in the endgame that was a mistake because it killed a lot of Piccolo's importance in future arcs, but we'll get to that in another video. As far as him going to merge with Kami, it finally ended Piccolo's story as a character, at least with the story they were trying to tell. Piccolo was a spawn of evil. He hated Kami. Even when he reluctantly joined the Z Fighters, he resented him. So for Piccolo to merge back with Kami, it really took a lot of pride to be swallowed, and it showed that Piccolo was not the same person that he used to be. And it's crazy ironic that he did that right after telling the Z Fighters, "Hey, I am not your friends, I'm only doing this to further my own plans for world domination." And as soon as he said that, Krillin was like, "Yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit, we know you're just chatting." That's why Kami had no problem merging with Piccolo, even though he was a little bit reluctant, but he finally understood, hey, this is not the guy that he used to be. And sure, us as an audience, we knew that Piccolo had changed, but it was just the icing on the cake of a story that was already perfectly told. Then you got a character like Vegeta, who in my opinion, his story was still being told in this arc. It obviously capped off in the Buu saga, and we're gonna get to that when we get to the Buu video, but I thought in this story they did a perfect job with Vegeta's character all across the board. This is a guy that got humiliated in the last saga. Not only was he publicly embarrassed by getting his ass beat by Frieza and killed with a shot through the chest, but his birthright of being the one to beat Frieza and become the Super Saiyan was taken away from him by a lower level Saiyan at birth, Goku. But knowing how prideful Vegeta is, he still wanted Goku to come back to Earth, and he gave them the idea of how to wish him back even though there was no planet Namek. He understood that to be the man, he's got to beat the man. And when he saw that Trunks coming from the future was somebody that also became a Super Saiyan, he realized he's gonna fall behind very quickly if he doesn't push himself past his limitations. And finally, we were able to see Super Saiyan.
Watch the NFL playoffs starting January 13th and get live TV on a variety of networks. With YouTube TV, try it free. Terms apply. Cancel anytime.
Oh my God, here we go.
The Kardashians have redefined the American dream.
Kimberly calculated from the beginning, how do I be
and Vegeta, and he had one of the most badass moments in the entire show defeating Android 19. But because Vegeta was doing heroic things not for the right reasons and because of his own selfish gain, that's why once again, similar to the Frieza saga, he was embarrassed by Cell not once but twice. Now unlike Piccolo's story, Vegeta's story kept going past this arc, and I know Toriyama was supposed to end the show, which is why Vegeta said what he said at the end of the Cell saga, saying that he would never fight again. But I really did enjoy this saga for Vegeta, especially considering how it capped off for him in the next arc. Now there are other characters that have some decent moments in development, like Tien holding off Cell, and of course Goku's big sacrifice. That was one of the most heartbreaking moments in my opinion of the entire show, especially considering the show was supposed to end like that. But in hindsight now, that death really isn't that sad. But at the end of the day, I could talk about all those things for hours. The real character that gets the best development in this arc is Gohan. Gohan in the beginning of this arc was a little kid that was waiting for his dad to come back to planet Earth. That's all. Chi-Chi was making him study, he wasn't even training, but once they found out that Frieza was coming to Earth, he realized that, damn, I gotta get my shit together real quick. Because then the androids were announced by Trunks coming from the future, and when the androids finally came, Gohan did his training, but unfortunately Goku got hit with the heart virus and that ruined all their plans. Thankfully they were able to get their shit together, but unfortunately the androids were the least of their worries in the grand scheme because Cell shows up. To Gohan, he's looking at all this stuff and saying, damn, can my dad really handle all this? Because he's been trained and conditioned his whole life to believe that his dad is always going to save the day. And that's why I really enjoyed the footage they gave us of Goku and Gohan in the hyperbolic time chamber, because it really gave us insight into their relationship. Goku sees Gohan as someone with so much potential that can supersede him one day as the protector of Earth. Meanwhile, Gohan just fights really because he has to, and that's why he doesn't really push himself to his limits the way Goku wants. To him, he's just like, I'm gonna do my part, but my dad is going to always save the day. That's how it was with the Saiyans, that's how it was with the Ginyu Force, and that's how it was with Frieza. But when push comes to shove and Goku simply is not strong enough to beat Cell, he tells Gohan, now is your chance. This is what I've been preparing you for this whole time. And we're finally able to see Gohan at his full potential defeating Cell. The fight was never anything super technical. It started off with Cell just beating the shit out of Gohan, and then once he realizes that Gohan needs to be pushed to reach his peak, Cell, with a little bit of Saiyan in him, wants to see that part of Gohan. So he not only tortures Gohan, but tortures his loved ones as well with the Cell Juniors. Now I will admit it is a little weird that it took Android 16 to be the one to push him over the edge, but the speech that Android 16 gave to Gohan made a lot of sense. Gohan in that moment understood that 16 was somebody that was just trying to enjoy the pleasures of life, even though he was never meant to. And 16 told him, Cell does not appreciate those things the way that I do. He was created to destroy, and that's all he's going to do. And right as soon as he said that, Cell destroyed Android 16, which just reinforced his point. And just like that, Gohan became the warrior that we all knew he could become from the beginning of the show. You had moments like him attacking Raditz, him attacking Nappa, Frieza, and now we finally got him beating the main villain in an arc. Gohan finally became the protector of Earth. And when the tide shifted in that fight after Gohan went Super Saiyan 2, I personally enjoyed the beatdown that he gave to Cell, even though he didn't finish the job the first time around.
Do you want a towel?
Does my moist repose bother you?
If you want trouble, you got it.
I'm a billionaire with a vagina. Are we friends yet?
FX's Fargo. No.
I like that part because in all actuality it feeded into his Saiyan genes, which is also another thing that I really enjoyed about this arc. They kept the Saiyans honest to who they are. I mean, people get on Vegeta for letting Cell transform into his third form, but in all actuality that is what a Saiyan would do. We were shown that in the past with Goku literally letting Frieza transform. We were shown that later on in the arc with Goku giving Cell a sense Jutsu Bean right before he was about to fight his own son, so it wouldn't be any different with Gohan fighting Cell when Cell's about to regenerate his body after the Kamehameha from Gohan. The Saiyan race is very prideful, and we learn every single arc just how. And it's not like that mistake went unpunished, as we all know Goku had to sacrifice himself in order to get Cell off the planet before he exploded. But of course, that now leads into the villain known as Cell. Cell, I think, is a mixed bag of emotions for me. But since we're on the good, let's talk about that good with Cell. Cell is definitely one of the most interesting villains in all of not only Dragon Ball Z, but anime. When Cell is introduced, he has one of the most goriest introductions in the history of the show. This is a guy that when he showed up, he looked like a slimy alien, and you knew he was the villain going forward. The visual of him absorbing the man trying to give Piccolo money was definitely a sight to be seen. And even going forward, when he absorbed other humans, and especially the androids, it was a very scary thing to watch as a kid growing up on Dragon Ball Z Kai. I mean, it didn't make me piss myself, but the shit was disturbing. I mean, just go back and watch when he absorbed Android 18. It deadass looked like he was raping that girl. Cell had this presence about each and every one of his transformations that were different, but were consistent in the tone. He was made to destroy and reach his perfect form. And once he reached his perfect form, it's not even like he set out to destroy everybody on Earth. He just wanted to test out his abilities. Cell definitely had this 4-letter word that the kids use these days, which is aura. And I think that aura is definitely a good thing that helps his presence on the show. But that's really all the good I can say about Cell, because now it's time to talk about the bad, not only with him, but this series.
It's time to switch my situation.
I'm making the turn into tech.
I want to take my career to new heights.
Get ready to fast track your future. AWS Cloud Institute is here.
Since we're on the topic of Cell, let's talk about the villains in this arc, because I have a lot to say. The villains in this arc are pretty mediocre in my opinion, outside of obviously perfect form Cell. To go from somebody like Frieza immediately towards the androids, I think was a huge step down. Now I understand that Frieza had things that the Cell Saga was never going to have. He was built up from basically the beginning of Dragon Ball. I mean, sure, we didn't know it, but the whole reason why Goku came to Earth was partially due to Frieza. But I'm not even talking about the attachment of certain characters towards our main characters, because that I could really care less about. My issue is that these villains either lack personality or motivations. Let's start off with the androids, because let's go in chronological order here. Android 19 and Dr. Gero made sense in their motivations. Gero wanted revenge on Goku for the Red Ribbon Army stuff in Dragon Ball, so it was understandable. But please, tell me a single character trait about Dr. Gero and Android 19.
Think, Mark! Think, Mark! Think, Mark!
Spoiler alert, you can't. These guys were extremely boring, the epitome of nothing to their character. And sure, in the end, they didn't end up becoming the main villain, but that was obviously for a reason. Toriyama had to keep rewriting it because he couldn't get them right. And when you move on to the next androids, Android 17 and 18, they had a little bit more personality. I mean, sure, they were bratty teenagers, and that's why he had to change it to Cell, but it was at least a step up from Android 19 and Dr. Gero, who were just emotionless beings. The only problem though with Android 17 and 18 is that they have no motivations whatsoever. I did not understand what was their goal throughout the entire arc. They kept saying they wanted to find Goku, but we were already told that these androids were different than the ones in Trunks' timeline. Not only were they stronger than those androids, but they also weren't as evil. And I'm confused by that, because if they're not as evil, why are they still trying to go after Goku? And then you talk about a lack of personality, I almost forgot about Android 16. He is just there to be there. Honestly, a waste of a character. There's nothing about him interesting. There's nothing about him that has real motives that he sticks to. He was designed to beat Goku, but he doesn't even follow through with that at all. And then he commits one of the dumbest actions I have ever seen in a show. If you guys remember, Dr. Gero gave him a self-destructing device that he was going to use obviously on Goku. But when he was getting repaired by Bulma and her dad later on in the arc, they removed the bomb from Android 16. 16 later on tried to use that bomb on Cell, Cell, but obviously he didn't know the bomb was gone. That later led to 16 being destroyed by Cell, but the thing that's so stupid about this is that they showed a flashback of Bulma and Dr. Briefs removing the bomb out of 16, and they even revealed that that bomb could blow up the Earth.
That bomb is no ordinary explosive. He could take out the whole planet with that thing.
Goodness.
Now you guys may say it's a little bit of a nitpick, but I think it's really stupid that Android 16 was going to blow up the Earth just to stop Cell. Now maybe you could explain that by saying, hey, maybe he didn't know that bomb could destroy the Earth. Well, then my response to that is, why even have us question all this shit in the first place by putting that detail in the story? It quite frankly just makes Android 16 look stupid. And that really seems to be a common theme with 16, 17, and 18. Their motives don't really make sense, and they divert from the plan of Dr. Gero, but they don't really give a real explanation why. I mean, I understand that Trunks goes back in time, and of course that changes everything, but why are they following some of the orders of Dr. Gero while also still destroying him and not being as evil? The androids aren't the only ones I have a problem with also in this show. I have a problem with Cell. Now, I know a lot of people love Cell, and hell, earlier on in this video, I talked about the good things I like about Cell, but there are things about Cell that truly don't make a lot of sense, and I don't like. For starters, Cell is pretty carbon copy of Frieza with the whole transformations thing, and that kind of becomes a theme in the next arc as well, but by this point in the show, I kind of realized what they were doing, and I just thought it was a lame ripoff and uncreative. And there are also moments about Cell that make him look like a coward. And sure, I like my villains to be a little bit cowardly, but unfortunately there's ways to do it and ways not to. Having Cell bitch and complain when Vegeta is beating his ass so he can transform to his third form, it doesn't make him look badass, it makes him look like a bitch. And it'd be one thing if this was the final fight of the show, but this is something in the middle of the arc. We're supposed to take this guy serious and he's bitching on his knees to Vegeta of all people. He should be doing that to him. And as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the motivations of Cell, they're not really made clear. In the beginning, I understand it, right? He's trying to reach his perfect form, but once he reaches his perfect form,
Watch football all season long, live and cable free.
there's nothing more to his character. He doesn't have any real goals or motives other than destroying the Earth. I'm sorry if I'm not just gonna take destroying the Earth for the sake of it from my main villains anymore. It's a played out cliche and it just doesn't work for me. Another thing about Cell that's pretty stupid is the loophole of him being able to come back to life after he blew himself up on Otherworld. Cell blows himself up after Goku transports him to Otherworld from Earth in order to preserve the planet, but somehow Cell survives the blast and is able to regenerate his body. This should not be possible. And not only is he able to regenerate his body, somehow he was able to gain the power of instant transmission. He tries to explain it by saying he has a nucleus in his head and if it's kept intact, he can regenerate, but that just doesn't work for me. We're just expected to believe that one small piece in your brain stayed intact. Okay, you know what? We'll let that slide for now. What makes it even dumber though is that he was able to come back to life in his perfect form. That just doesn't make any sense. Why is he able to come back in a form that he wasn't in beforehand? But hey, you know what? We'll let that slide because hey, 2 strikes, not 3. But unfortunately, there's a 3rd strike because how the fuck can he do instant transmission? That makes no sense at all. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But fool 3 times in a row? No, not gonna cut it, buddy. The fact of the matter is that it was lazy writing and they just wanted to kill Goku in an emotional moment while still having Gohan save the day. But doing it like this just made everybody look stupid, including Cell. I really feel bad for Toriyama because it's very clear that he didn't really have a concrete plan for this story other than the ending. I don't think Toriyama even meant to go past the Frieza saga, and I know for sure he didn't mean to go past the Cell saga. I mean, in this arc, we were basically told that 5 different people were going to be the main villains. Dr. Gero, Android 17, 18, then Android 16, then Cell. And I'm not going to include Android 19 because she wasn't really a main villain, more so just the henchman of Dr. Gero. Bottom line is though, it's hard to really connect with a main villain when they're just changing every single time. Now thankfully we got a lot of episodes with Cell, but unfortunately by that point we were already deep into the arc. The damage had already been been done. And speaking of damage being done, the Super Saiyan transformation immediately felt less special in this arc. I mean, Super Saiyan 2 is pretty cool, even though it was never really used after this arc, but that moment is something I can't take away from Gohan. That was a special moment in Dragon Ball Z history. But when you look at how they've bastardized the Super Saiyan transformation, it begins in this arc. I mean, I love Trunks. Everybody that watches Dragon Ball Z loves the character of Trunks. He's so badass, and from the jump, he has some of the most badass scenes in the history of anime. I mean, slicing up Frieza, that was amazing. But when he shows up, he basically tells us that being a Super Saiyan doesn't matter anymore. He was a Super Saiyan and sliced up Frieza and killed his father. Keep in mind that Frieza was actually stronger at that point than he was on Namek, and his father at that time was also stronger than Frieza. Then Goku immediately shows up, and Trunks basically looks like a loser because Goku beats him with one finger. That same sword he used to kill Frieza, by the way. Now, I know that wasn't a serious fight, but my point in mentioning that is to show that the Super Saiyan transformation really wasn't shit anymore. And this was when it started. I could get into it a little bit more, but I'm gonna save my thoughts for the Buu saga about this because it applies way more to that. Honestly, when I look back at this arc, there are a lot of things that I love about it, but there are things that really take away from the story and bring it down just a tier below the Frieza saga in my opinion. And the reason I call it overrated is because there are people who actually believe it's the best arc in Dragon Ball, and I just completely disagree. The Frieza saga was concise from beginning till end. It was perfect, and it has a great story that traces all the way back to the beginning of Dragon Ball. And sure, you could say it's an unfair advantage to give the Frieza saga that over the Cell saga, but the Cell saga still traced back to Dragon Ball with the Dr. Gero connection and the Red Ribbon Army. The reason why it doesn't feel that way though is because they didn't really dwell on it and do a good job of connecting the story. I really do think the villains in this arc are a step down from the villains that we had in the Frieza saga, and when you throw in some of the loopholes about certain characters just doing dumb shit and shit happening for no reason, honestly, I would still give this arc a thumbs up, but I definitely don't think it's as strong as the one I gave in the Frieza saga. But hey, those are just my thoughts. I'm sure a lot of you guys disagree, so let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think. Don't forget to also drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications. This is your boy Omo Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed.
Alright.